Welcome to The Debate. Our source material today is the really extraordinary memoir, My Life Story, by Brendan Rose. It details an artistic career that's just built on a foundation of extreme personal contrast. We're looking at an artist whose controversial work is institutionally linked to periods of, institutionalization, financial ruin, and relationship collapse, but which also includes this later massive surge of output during a time of self-proclaimed heaven.
Right, and that tension is really at the heart of the source material, isn't it? The text presents this undeniable correlation between moments of personal volatility and moments of creative urgency.
Exactly. So the central question we have to grapple with is this. Was the extreme personal suffering and chaos that the author details a necessary engine for his most profound, raw, and controversial creations? Or was the eventual stability he found later the true enabler of his greatest technical and, canonical achievements?
And I maintain that sustained, realized mastery, especially the kind that involves complex technical execution, it fundamentally requires stability and focus.
And I'm going to argue that the volatility was actually the essential catalyst for the content's raw power and the controversy that built his entire identity. I mean, let's just look at the evidence through the lens of the author's stated goals. He wanted to become the, quote, most controversial figure in music. And the chronology, it supports the idea that chaos was his engine. His music career really starts rolling in earnest right alongside periods of maximum distress. The death of his father, followed by institutionalizations between 2018 and 2019. And critically, he notes he was flushing his medication. The resulting manic fury produced these aggressively political and controversial songs like Jordan Peterson, Prison of Hate, and Corporation. The removal of psychological inhibition caused by that instability enabled him to generate that precise brand of boundary-pushing content. And this all culminates in the Kingston Road arc, where, amidst starvation and fear of imminent death, he explicitly states that ditching his medication and the resulting insanity led to, quote, incredible music that was terrifying, beautiful, shocking, thought-provoking, the best music of my life. The intensity of that suffering was the only possible fuel for that raw material.
Okay, I see that perspective, but I think it confuses immediate, powerful emotional discharge with lasting, high-quality artistic achievement. While all that turmoil provided rich narrative material and, yes, immediate controversy, the evidence really shows that true mastery, volume, and technical complexity were only achieved after he established some kind of physical and psychological equilibrium. I mean, we have to look at the stable 3-year period that followed the crisis, the time he found heaven at Julia's house. This environment led to the Julia arc, which, in the author's own assessment, dwarfs every other arc I ever made, put together into oblivion. He isn't just saying these songs are emotionally salient, he says these later songs are so much better than any other songs I've made in my life. And beyond that, the pinnacle of his artistic ambition, the game Luciferianism, which he calls his greatest artistic achievement, was published in 2025 only after he spent the entire year of 2024 working hard to make my game in Unreal Engine 5.4. That feat of engineering, creating an open-world roguelike with over 290 high-quality levels, fundamentally demands a sustained, focused dedication that Constant Crisis just prohibits.
Right, but we have to distinguish between the raw, immediate power of the controversial work and the, polished final product, which inherently risks tempering that raw energy. You focus on the technical achievement of the game, which is, I agree, considerable, but the soul of his music, the canon that defines his highly provocative identity, that was born in the fire of instability. I'll readily concede that his absolute earliest pre-crisis works, like The Golden Age of Loki, were, in his own words, terrible and road experience, like Long Live the New Flesh, those demonstrate a profound existential power. This music was created while he was literally starving and fearing police action. It's frankly remarkable that he even survived, let alone created, under those conditions. That level of existential intensity is an irreplaceable creative engine that the comfort of a perfect downtown house simply cannot replicate.
I see that point, but while the emotional intensity of that music is undeniable, we have to look at where that intensity led in terms of consistent quality. I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that the quality of the Crisis work is inherently superior just because the suffering was greater. If chaos were the true engine of quality, the output would be uniformly high during those periods. Yet during another significant crisis, his attempt to botch Jolin's court case, the author himself admits he made horrible music. He specifically refers to it as the self-destructive I'm the bad guy music.
That's true, he does say that.
Right, so that output, created under self-induced chaos, was explicitly substandard by his own measure. Quality has to be defined by realization and sustained output that avoids self-destruction. The Julia arc, in contrast, produced this voluminous material, including celebrated songs like Win Stupid Prizes, where he was able to work without constantly reacting to external hostilities. Stability allowed him to control the narrative rather than just being a victim of it.
That's a compelling point about consistency. But have you considered the distinction between the artistic material and the artistic execution? The trauma, the failed marriage, the legal battles, that's the material, certainly. But the link is deeper. The controversial nature and the deep religious character of his work are inseparable from the instability that drove him to reference taking the Lord's name in vain and actively try to become a religious figure. The content itself is a product of volatility. I mean, look at the games from those periods, Kingdom of Lies and Harmony, which he describes as a really, really perverted porn game. These were products of incredible emotional risk-taking. That willingness to offend and push boundaries, which defines him, is intrinsically fueled by instability, a quality that stability would inherently temper.
But risk-taking content is one thing, professional execution is another, and this is where stability proves its worth. Take Harmony. It was described as this massive, ambitious project, but it was never distributed. Why? Because of its 60-gigabyte install size and the logistical difficulties of dealing with digital marketplaces. It was an unrealized effort, the casualty of chaotic planning. So instability yields these great, controversial ideas perhaps, but poor mechanisms for delivery. Creating a masterpiece like Luciferianism, this huge sandbox roguelike, it requires so much more than raw emotion. We're talking about designing almost 300 high-quality levels in Unreal Engine 5.4. That requires disciplined project management, thousands of hours of debug time, consistent coding. That level of focus is physically impossible if you're dealing with flies in your apartment or worrying about your next meal.
Focused work in his perfect home that allowed the full technical realization of his ambition.
I'm not convinced that technical complexity trumps the essential artistic breakthrough, though. The ability to make something finished is certainly tied to stability, I'll grant you that. But the moment the artist captured the raw essence of his identity, the shocking and terrifying music, that moment was during maximum distress. And we have to weigh the author's own often contradictory reflections on his process. You're relying heavily on his later rationalization, but let's go back to the source. When he was in that motel between the Kingston Road crisis and Finding Julia, he made an immediate reflection. He said, I am making music regardless of the situation, and the worse it gets, the better the music gets. That's a contemporaneous reflection, right from inside the pressure cooker.
I just come at it from a different way. That initial statement, while it's emotionally potent, it seems to be contradicted by his own ultimate conclusion. That later statement, when the pain succeeded, the art got better, not worse, that is a critical piece of retrospective clarity. It's an explicit rejection of the tortured artist trope that he had previously embraced. He's directly stating that relief from abuse allowed him to achieve greater success. He is defining better by sustained quality and volume, not just intensity. Furthermore, the sheer scale of the Julia arc output, which he notes utterly overshadows his previous efforts, that provides the empirical data to back up this later claim. The ability to thrive for 3 years in a stable home is the strongest evidence that structure and safety are the actual foundation for sustained genius, not torture.
I would still argue that the initial insight captures an irreplaceable truth about the intensity and controversy of the work, even if the later period provided the quantity and the polish. The author set out to define himself by provocation, and that level of friction only seems possible when he was fully unmoored, drawing energy from the brink of crisis. Stability, while crucial for life, inherently domesticates that extreme artistic impulse.
And I would counter that the controversy provided the marketing, but stability provided the quality and the execution. The sheer scale of Luciferianism, that level of focused creation, and the hundreds of superior songs in the Julia arc confirm that structure was absolutely essential to translating raw life experience into realized canonical achievements. Without stability, the ideas just remain volatile, unfinished, or, as he said himself, just plain horrible.
Well, this discussion really highlights the fundamental tension within the author's narrative. My argument is that the profound, shocking content, the very identity of this artist, emerged primarily from the destructive pressure cooker of crisis, giving his work its unique, essential edge.
And my position remains that the necessary technical sophistication, the sustained creative effort, and the overwhelming volume of his greatest works only arrived when the author was housed, fed, and psychologically stable in what he calls his perfect home. The chaos provided the history, yes, and the fuel for the initial fire, but structure and safety were required to forge the final, durable masterpieces.
The material clearly demonstrates that the author's complete canon, from the Valhalla arc to the Julia arc, relies on the full spectrum of his experience. The listener really has to weigh the evidence for themselves, the irreplaceable intensity of the crisis-born works versus the overwhelming scale and technical realization of the stability-enabled masterpieces, to draw their own conclusion about the true engine of this extraordinary artistic creation.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking on something a little different.
A lot different, I'd say.
Yeah. It's less about traditional history or, global events, and much more about the intensely chaotic, self-constructed universe of one man.
A content creator and artist named Brendan Rose.
And our central document for this mission is, well, it's just one source, but it is sprawling. It's deeply intimate, and I have to say, highly subjective.
It's his self-written memoir titled My Life Story.
Right.
And this is a really unique deep dive for us because we aren't here to, verify external reports or fact check against other documents.
No, not at all.
We're analyzing a primary source where the author is deliberately building his own mythology in real time.
He's a creator who actively, it seems, courts controversy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he uses his own severe personal struggles. I mean, we're talking institutionalizations, legal battles, avoiding medication, shifting identities. He uses all of that as the literal raw material for his art.
And the time frame here is just remarkable.
It is.
His narrative covers almost 2 decades of creative work. It runs from his earliest content way back in 2007 right up to now. November 2025.
It's an exploration of the absolute intersection between, this claimed personal chaos and his artistic creation.
And to really get the mindset here, we have to start with the opening quote of his memoir. It sets the tone perfectly for the self-mythologizing nature of this whole thing.
It does. Rose attributes this haunting line, all those moments will be lost in time like tears in rain, to Elon Musk.
Which is, of course, famously not Elon Musk.
No, it's from Blade Runner.
Exactly. And that confusion, or, maybe it's an intentional misattribution, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
It immediately focuses the lens on his obsession with legacy.
And memory. And I think most importantly, this deep fear of loss.
Yeah, it speaks directly to this frantic drive he has to document everything and create this permanent, untouchable artistic canon.
He's trying to make sure that even the most violent or bizarre or beautiful moments of his life don't just vanish.
Like tears in rain.
Precisely. And the structure he lays out in the memoir itself, it reveals an artist who sees his life less as a straight line and more as a series of creative cycles.
Defined by specific kinds of suffering.
Yes. He calls them arcs.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to trace these chronological arcs. We're going to move from his early days of YouTube trolling
Right.
to the profound turmoil of what he calls the Valhalla arc, through the brief but violently confrontational Captain A.C. Hab arc. and ultimately to the unexpected stability and artistic refinement he claims to have found in his current Julia arc.
We really need to understand how the trauma in each of these arcs fed the art as it evolved.
Exactly.
It's an almost novelistic approach to his own life story, where the suffering becomes the engine.
And the art is the only thing that justifies it.
Or maybe redeems it, yeah.
So we have to begin with the most central and I think most controversial element of his identity, his name. He makes this bold, almost spiritual claim that his name is deliberately omitted from discussions, and that this is a proud, important part of his character.
It's crucial to him.
So why is the act of not naming him so foundational to his whole persona?
It's a fascinatingly modern digital strategy, but it's rooted in these, ancient ideas about power and names.
Okay.
He sees it as a way to control the conversation and ultimately to control the algorithm. He calls it a feedback loop.
A feedback loop. How does that work?
The idea is that if people are forced to talk around him about his work, his actions, his controversies, without ever saying his name, they're basically contributing to his mythology while at the same time acknowledging how potent he is.
That is a fascinating inversion of anonymity. He's not trying to hide.
Not at all. He's claiming that the absence of his name in these charged conversations is proof of his profound destabilizing importance.
He even takes it a step further, right? He says using his name takes on a religious character.
Exactly, like using a deity's name or taking the Lord's name in vain. That religious claim is absolutely key to his whole artistic mission.
How so?
He explicitly states, "I have endeavored to become a religious figure." And he claims he succeeded by creating this huge body of songs that form his religious canon, which he says he worships in earnest.
So for him, the art, the music, that's his scripture.
It is. It's meant to be studied and internalized and maybe even revered.
But his religious canon is far from devotional in the way you normally think of it.
Oh, not even close. He stresses that he's no gospel singer.
No. He's a remarkably challenging and disturbing controversial figure.
And that intentional contradiction, that's the space he wants to live in. It's both sacred to him, but also profane to the public.
And that leads right into his dual identity.
Publicly, he wants to be among or the most controversial figure in music.
Right.
But at the same time, he adopts the moniker the Devil 666. That's his developer identity for his big game, Luciferianism.
So the development name is directly linked to the religious and sometimes blasphemous canon he's trying to build.
Inextricably linked. And to sort of cement his place in the broader cultural landscape, he actively cultivates these associations.
With other notable figures.
Yeah, in the content creator and political spheres. He lists names like Romanian TV's V, Liana K, Styx Hexenhammer.
Doug's Dharma, Akira the Dawn.
Right. And these connections, whether they're real collaborations or just conversations, they serve as a kind of validation for him, acknowledgement of his cultural weight.
And the most personal, the most significant of these is the dedication of the entire memoir.
To Scott Adams.
Yeah. And he makes this profound claim that Adams will likely take to his grave my name and his memories of the man I am.
That's not just a casual dedication?
No. It suggests this deep, personal connection that he sees as integral to his own legacy. It's like he's saying, even in death, my memory will be carried by others.
It's an intellectual endorsement he clearly values deeply.
So we have this constructed persona, the unnameable devil, the creator of a religious canon. Let's trace back to what started all this.
Okay.
His artistic timeline begins simply enough. He has a YouTube channel in 2007.
Which he describes as an edgy troll channel. Mostly gaming stuff.
But the real emotional, foundational shift that came in 2016.
His father's death.
Yeah. He describes avoiding visiting him often, but being there at the end. And the memoir gives these details that are so specific, you can feel the emotional weight.
Like his father discovering Amazon while he was in the hospital.
And buying gifts for everyone.
And the gifts for Rose were 2 specific video games.
Stella Glow and Etrian Odyssey Untold 2.
And now those games serve as these physical reminders of that final moment of connection.
That reconciliation, the apology and forgiveness they exchanged before he died seems to have been this critical release for him. It sort of propelled him forward.
And that emotional drive probably helped him push through and graduate from his game programming course in 2018.
Even though he calls the diploma itself worthless.
Right. But he acknowledges the skills he learned carried him all the way through to creating his, his eventual masterpiece game, Luciferianism.
And at the same time, the physical setting of his life changes drastically. This is what really sets the stage for all the chaos that's about to come.
He moves from what he calls a roach-infested nightmare of an apartment,
which he shared with his cat, Nako.
to the family mansion in Dundas West, Toronto, to live with his mother.
He even notes that Dundas West is a rich suburb known for good pizza.
And near a subway station that was later renamed because of controversy.
So this transition from isolated poverty to the lap of relative luxury, it's pivotal.
It is. The struggles become internal and relational instead of just, existential.
He's now housebound. He's dealing with the beginning of his mother's illness and all the family pressure that came with it.
And that's where the Valhalla arc is born, right there in that mansion.
So the Valhalla arc, this period from roughly 2018 to 2020, it's defined by him starting to create music. But it's all tangled up with this devastating personal conflict and institutionalization.
And the spark for the music itself, it came from a pretty unlikely source.
This whole saga with a content creator named EgoCast Andy.
Yeah, he was watching Andy and found it remarkable that Andy seemed to be talking about his life without ever actually mentioning him by name.
Again, feeding into that sense of self-importance and the power of the unspoken name.
Exactly. And through Andy's Discord server, he meets a few friends, but most notably, a woman named Valeda.
Right, and the memoir states, really explicitly, that an unrequited crush on Valeda was the direct emotional catalyst for him to start making music.
This is the classic artistic impulse.
Clearly, turning that profound emotional frustration and longing into, concrete creative output.
And the result was his first album, The Golden Age of Loki, Loki being his old YouTube name.
It's important, though, to note how he judges this early work.
Oh, yeah. His self-assessment is brutal.
He calls the early songs truly terrible.
Yeah.
Beyond poo, they were super poo.
Which is quite a review.
It is. But that extreme self-critique shows that while the emotional reason for creating was there, the quality just wasn't yet.
And that low bar of his initial output, it contrasts so sharply with the too good for words music he claims to make in his later arcs.
So this EgoCast Andy saga, it ends pretty dramatically.
The Discord gets shut down because of a nefarious person, as he puts it. But the real critical moment, the concluding moment, was this painful interaction he has with Valeda.
She left his own Discord, right?
Yes, he says she left laughing in hysterics, mocking my worthlessness as he was kicking her out.
Wow.
And he claims he immediately took that rejection and anger and codified it into the song Dead Enemy.
So that emotional rejection just solidified the raw, often furious tone that would define the music of the whole Valhalla arc.
Exactly. And at the exact same time this artistic birth is happening, his personal life is just utterly collapsing.
His mother's newly acquired Alzheimer's was providing a shield, in his view, for her horrendous behavior, abusive nonsense.
Which he deeply resented. And we have to talk about the cycle of self-sabotage that fueled this entire period.
His ongoing struggle with medication.
Yeah. He confesses with just brutal honesty that flushing his medication was a foolish vice that would ruin me again and again and again and again and again for years.
He's very clear about the pattern. Quitting his meds almost instantly destroyed his life.
A pattern that he says didn't truly break until 2024.
And this self-sabotage, it immediately leads to external conflict. The first institutionalization happened in September 2018.
His mother called an ambulance.
And he describes the ward as hell. Critically, his music becomes furious, a direct reflection of his anger at his mother for putting him there.
And then just a few months later, the cycle repeats itself. He's institutionalized a second time.
But this period of intense confinement and anger, it directly resulted in him creating some highly unconventional songs.
Right, like the excited Jordan Peterson Prison of Hate.
And that funny and absurd song, Corporation, which he claims was sung by a detailed Larry Flynt impersonation.
It's incredible. Even while he's confined, he's producing these songs that are capturing the zeitgeist, like with Jordan Peterson, or just indulging in this really dark, absurd humor.
The pressure cooker environment seemed to intensify his output, not stop it.
And the family conflict was mounting right alongside his mental health struggles. His uncles were pressuring him to put his mother in a home.
And the memoir details a moment when they just reached a breaking point and kicked me out into the street to suffer for days.
So he was completely destabilized, alternating between the comfort of that mansion and genuine homelessness because of these volatile family dynamics.
But despite all this volatility, the need to create professionally was still there.
It was during this period that he published his game, Kingdom of Lies, on Steam.
Which shows that his self-taught coding skills were still functional even in the middle of all that chaos.
And amidst all this, he's seeking stability in relationships.
Which proved to be brief and complex.
He met Joy Lee, a 41-year-old South Korean companion who gave him essential shelter when his mother was actively trying to make him homeless.
He admits to mistakes that ended the relationship, but says they're still on good terms.
And then came Kimmy, who was 46. He describes nearly marrying her.
And the seriousness is clear. They were planning IVF. She'd secured the money.
But the relationship ended because of performance issues, which he attributed to their age gap. He was, 32 or 33? And he says he wanted more.
And this breakup left him with this deep, lasting guilt.
He remembers the specific fortune that was told at a Buddhist monastery, and it becomes this ongoing symbol of cosmic irony in his life.
Kimmy was told, you will have a baby.
And he was told, you will live an easy life.
An easy life.
Yeah.
That fortune is such a powerful counterpoint to everything we've just discussed.
Absolutely. The man who was promised ease was actively living a life of extreme crisis and self-destruction.
So after the breakup, he moves downtown to Bathurst, near Chinatown, which he says was a lifelong dream of his.
And just as he achieves that physical dream, the professional devastation hits.
The end of this initial phase of the Valhalla arc was a double blow in September 2019.
First, his mother is finally placed in a care home, which he hoped would bring some peace.
But she almost immediately gets herself kicked out.
And second, and this was devastating for him, Steam banned his account.
Because the unnamed game, what he himself describes as an atrocity, just trying to piss people off.
And he claims this ban ruined him professionally for years. It lasted right up until the account was finally reinstated.
Just a few months ago, in 2025.
Yeah. The loss of his main professional channel, his access to his audience and his income, it was absolute. The devastation lasted for years.
But that reinstatement is what eventually allowed him to release his masterpiece.
So the Valhalla arc is this environment where professional punishment coupled with personal chaos directly fueled an evolving, intensely disturbed artistic output.
So as the Valhalla chaos continues, the conflict just escalates significantly with his marriage to Jalen,
whom he met at the end of 2019.
And this relationship, it launches what he calls the Captain ACA arc, and it was just fraught with turmoil from the very beginning.
The speed of their commitment is really telling. He married Jillian, who was 36, very quickly.
And he says explicitly it was out of fear that she would leave him because of his recurring trouble performing in bed.
Which is a clear sign of just deep insecurity and anxiety influencing his major life decisions.
The relationship was built on a foundation of professional ruin and personal fear.
And the instability was obvious immediately. The wedding itself was a tense, dramatic affair.
He notes she took pictures with another man just 2 months into their relationship.
And exchanged hearts with another man the night before the wedding.
And he admits he gawked a lot at her bridesmaid. So it was a union marked by mistrust and, emotional volatility on both sides from day one.
The relationship details during his security job from 2020 to early 2021, they just paint a picture of ongoing torture.
He claims she gave him hell at work, texting him ridiculous fights and screaming at him while he was trying to do his job.
He alleges she was untrustworthy, that she would steal his work money, and went missing for 2 or 3 days at a time.
No explanation.
None.
And despite all this intense conflict, their son, Muji, was born in January 2021.
But this did nothing to stabilize the situation. Just 1 month later, he lowered, then quit his medication entirely.
And here we see that cycle of destruction repeat, but this time the stakes are so much higher.
Yeah. His wife called to have him put in a ward. This is the 4th institutionalization attempt.
And this move was justified by his erratic behavior, but also by external complaints that were filed against him at the housing board.
About his music and his dog Loki's constant barking.
So to avoid losing his dog, they move into his mother's house in Dundas West.
The very house his uncle was desperately trying to sell to pay for his mother's care.
Which was a huge financial burden, right?
Whoa.
$500,000 to $700,000.
Immense pressure. He'd been promised a condo by his uncle if he cooperated with placing his mother in a home, and that promise just turned into pure agony.
And the person conflict just reaches its peak in mid-2021.
Jillian was visiting strangers, which triggered intense jealousy and anger in Rose.
This led to a massive text fight. When she came back, she ran upstairs, screaming. He locked himself in the second-floor study.
And this is the moment of genuine violence and, I think, psychological ambiguity.
She let out a primal scream, found a wooden plank, and started trying to break down the door.
And the memoir notes his uncertainty. He wonders if she intended to kill me or maybe to hug me, who knows?
That ambiguity is so revealing about his psychological state.
It's a defense mechanism, isn't it? refusing to assign malice, to frame an attempt to violently break down a locked door with a plank as potentially an attempt at an embrace.
It suggests a deep need to normalize or minimize the extreme violence of the situation.
Yeah.
So he called the police. They arrested her, issued a no-contact order.
Even though he immediately started crying and begging them not to charge her.
And the legal case that followed was just protracted and agonizing. It dragged on for 5 months because she refused to apologize.
Even though prosecutors offered to drop the charges if she just said she was sorry.
And his artistic response during this legal limbo is fascinating.
He describes making horrible music during this time, what he calls I'm the bad guy music.
And it was specifically designed to botch the case against Jilin and turn everyone against him so the charges would be dropped.
He was willing to sacrifice his public image and artistic integrity, creating this genuinely self-deprecating, aggressive music just to save her from the consequences.
She finally resolved the case in January 2022 by just opting for 2 weeks of anger management.
Instead of offering the apology he felt he was due.
And immediately after this, he finds himself in his next creative environment. This intense, localized urban conflict he calls the Chinatown-Kensington conflict.
Or the Captain ACB arc.
He was living near Kensington with his pets, Loki, Neko, and Tequila.
But the conditions were dire, just fueled by his depression, his paranoia, his fear.
He describes the house filling with thousands of flies because he was too sad and scared at the people outside to walk Loki.
That is just a visceral image of absolute physical deterioration, a complete loss of control.
He claims he was surrounded by a cloud of flies while masturbating profusely, a detail that just solidifies this atmosphere of total psychological and physical collapse.
And crucially, he details this constant state of perceived harassment from locals,
Who he labeled as SJWs.
claiming they were jealous and offended by his music. He alleges they mocked him, threatened him, coughed on his food.
And that one person tried to beat him to death with a metal rod.
A case the police refused to pursue.
So his music responded directly to this intense, hostile environment. He created the Captain ACAB, the Lone Oppressor arc.
And this music became, by his own account, increasingly violent and shocking and menacing.
It was designed explicitly as psychological warfare to scare them off.
And in the context of our rule to report impartially, we have to note that Rose's account frames this as political persecution, but his music was undeniably provocative.
He insists he was never going to act on the violence. He saw the music as a shield.
The threat was the deterrent. This phase saw him deliberately amplify the shocking nature of his art to control his environment.
And the only break in all this hostility was a young woman at the Creeps fashion store below him.
She was friends with his detractors, but she offered him what he calls 40% support.
Nodding along to songs like Who You Want to Kill.
He felt validated that she was proud he survived the year without dying.
And this strange moment of dark validation helped him transition.
The period ends with his move to a condo on Kingston Road in Scarborough, which marks the end of the hyper-confrontational Captain Ahab persona.
But it plunges him into an even deeper existential crisis defined by profound loss. The move to Scarborough is prefaced by a devastating low point. Just before the move, he describes walking across the entire city and attempting something horrible.
The police intervened and brought him home.
Which suggests a severe mental break. A final, despairing act before this new temporary environment.
And the Scarborough condo, which was rented for him by a friend named Sam, became a place of irreversible loss.
He was only left with $300 for food a month.
And he was forced to give away his dogs, Loki and Tequila. This section is maybe the most emotionally raw part of the whole memoir.
The description of giving Loki away is just heart-wrenching.
He notes that he tricked Loki into thinking he was just going for a walk.
Only for the dog to realize he was being taken away, looking back at Rose, so sad as they drove off.
He was convinced Loki's soul was crushed by the loss of his family. He classifies it as the ultimate low point in his emotional life.
So he lost his wife, his child, who he would later disown, and now his dogs. Everything except his cat, Neko.
And he quit his medication, again, entirely. Out of exhaustion, lack of funds, and just utter hopelessness.
He declared himself no longer responsible for my actions.
And yet, paradoxically, the music from this period of total abandonment was, in his words, incredible.
Terrifying, beautiful, shocking, and the best music of my life.
The creative spark ignited by destruction was reaching its most potent and unstable peak.
And this period led to weeks of actual, genuine starvation.
He notes he spent all his money on a website builder, prioritizing the artistic infrastructure over his own survival.
His only food came from the food bank. dried legumes, which he describes vividly as like eating stones.
He says the physical pain was unbelievable.
And it was during this phase of absolute physical and emotional exhaustion that he created his final, powerful Valhalla-era works.
Dead enemy. To live, well, that is the best revenge. Long live the new flesh. Fifth Ave, call the cops. The sermon of the collecting years.
These works were literally forged in hunger and despair.
And the Valhalla arc reached its violent conclusion in crisis. After performing something unbelievably horrible, the police cut open his door.
To find him in a state of spiritual and mental collapse, sitting in the lotus position, naked.
He was arrested and taken to Scarborough Centenary Hospital for a month, which he memorializes the jail arc of hip-hop songs.
Still converting every life event into content.
Always.
The legal fallout that followed was immense and transactional.
Yeah, lawyer Yulia Pestin filed suit against his uncle over the incident, with Rose himself named in the case.
And his interaction with his lawyer is a key moment of reflection for him on the commercial nature of law.
She reportedly told him, "I only care about getting paid, and I get paid no matter who wins."
Wow.
And the financial repercussions of his behavior were staggering. Yuli's team reportedly charged $100,000 to the condo corporation to expel him.
A fee that was ultimately passed on to the residents in the form of extra rent.
His personal crisis became a collective financial burden on his neighbors.
And ultimately, he chose a voluntary departure.
He felt deep guilt for the financial damage and worried about the judge's reaction, referencing his own political commentary work.
Seeing the new lady judge with pronouns in her bio, he took this somewhat arbitrarily as a sign that it was over.
He interpreted it as a clear signal that the time for confrontation had passed.
So he agreed to leave, transitioning to a temporary motel stay, paid for by Sam, until he was given a 1-week deadline to find a new place.
This terrifying period of instability marked the final, desperate low before the narrative shifts entirely.
Right, into the peaceful stability of the Julia arc. And this is where the narrative just shifts dramatically. From the chaos of Scarborough and the legal battles to a phase of profound, unexpected stability.
Ushering in the Julia arc. After years of self-inflicted and external trauma, he found what he describes as heaven.
At Julia's house downtown Toronto.
He's lived there for 3 years now, calls it the best part of the city. His description is just rapturous.
A huge bedroom, a balcony, an attached kitchen, a walk-in closet.
It's the complete antithesis of the roach-infested apartment or the fly-clouded Kensington house.
But the relationship with Julia is the key stabilizing factor.
Julia is an 83-year-old grandma whom he loves.
He even questions if he's living in sin with her, given his complex marital status.
But he sees her as wonderful, overlooking his mischief and providing this crucial sense of family and safety for the foreseeable future, potentially 10 years or more.
And this safety, this emotional fulfillment, it directly triggered a change in his artistic method and his whole approach to conflict.
He made a deliberate lifestyle change. He stopped playing his aggressively controversial music while walking around.
Something he had done constantly since the golden age of Loki.
And he credits this simple shift with helping him avoid a significant number of fights. It's a definitive move away from intentional antagonism.
And the dominance of the Julia arc music is, in his estimation, absolute.
He claims this new canon dwarfs every other arc I ever made. He says the songs are too good for words and his best music ever.
He lists examples like Final Gas Station Attendant, Blood Angel and the Caravan, Sleep, Caesar's Legion.
So this period is defined by high volume and, critically, his perception of peak quality.
And the culmination of his entire artistic journey, those skills he gained from that worthless diploma finally being realized, is the development and professional release of his masterpiece game, Luciferianism.
He worked on it throughout 2024, released it on Epic in February 2025, and then on Steam in October, after that crucial reinstatement of his account.
For a solo creator, the technical details are really impressive.
It's an open-world sandbox, an indie roguelike soulslike with over 290 high-quality levels built in Unreal Engine 5.4.
This is the product of sustained high-quality focus that the chaos of the Valhalla arc could never have supported.
And philosophically, the game is where the religious canon finds its ultimate form.
He describes it as a dense, strange, and lingering religious poem in game form.
Inspired deeply by Nietzsche's Zarathustra, Plato's Allegory of the Cave, and Gnosticism.
Right, and just to quickly contextualize those, Nietzsche's Zarathustra is all about overcoming traditional morality and creating new values.
Which is highly resonant with a controversial figure establishing his own canon.
Plato's Allegory of the Cave speaks to the pain of leaving illusion for truth, which mirrors his self-destructive cycles and eventual self-awareness.
And Gnosticism, focusing on salvation through esoteric knowledge, perfectly aligns with the secretive, complex mythology he's built around his life.
And in classic Rose fashion, even the formal development details contribute to the myth.
The game was built by one guy with schizophrenia in Unreal Engine 5.4.
And published by the Czechoslovakian secret police.
He ensures that the entire package, from philosophy to publisher, continues the intentional mythology of chaos and intrigue, even when his personal life is stable.
As of November 2025, he seems to be in a state of final contentment.
Though still struggling with some of the personal demons that haunted his earlier life.
He mentions briefly dating Anastasia, a 22-year-old woman, but admits he failed to perform when trying to meet her again.
Which confirms that the performance anxiety issues from the Julian and Kimi eras are still there.
Artistically, though, he's adapting. He's embracing new technology, buying Suno, an AI music platform,
to make copyright-happy songs that he fully owns the rights to. He gives examples like Speckled Daisies and I Love My Shelf.
This is a creator focused entirely on continuous output, on ownership, and moving into this new, generative era of his canon, detached from the raw fury of his past.
He concludes his story by stating definitively that he is happy, safe, and no longer wants another life. He believes he's secure at Julia's for the foreseeable future, which allows him to sustain this level of artistic production.
And this brings us to the final, crucial commentary he provides on the relationship between art and pain.
A theme that has underpinned this entire deep dive.
He explicitly addresses the common narrative of the suffering artist, claiming, "Pain was inflicted on me, I was trying to stop it. When the pain seceded, the art got better, not worse."
He frames the entire Valhalla period as one of torture. He specifically names his ex-wife, Jilin, as the devil, unironically.
For Rose, this is definitive rejection of the romanticized idea that suffering is necessary for genius.
For him, stability enabled his true artistic fulfillment, moving beyond superpoo to too good for words.
However, this hard-won piece is complex. It's marked by profound, final, emotional losses.
He expresses deep pain and grief over the loss of his cat, Neko, who he suspects is dead.
And in a final, brutal act of emotional severance that closes the memoir, he makes the definitive statement that his son, Muji, is not my son.
The chaos may have stopped, but the pain and the decisions made during those years of turmoil are irrevocable.
This self-written narrative gives us an unparalleled look into how trauma can be systematically processed, documented, and converted into this vast, sprawling, artistic canon.
We trace the trajectory from the frantic early superpoo stage of the Golden Age of Loki and the Valhalla arc,
fueled by medication avoidance, institutionalization, and family conflict,
to the surprising stability of the Julia arc.
And that stability didn't just halt the chaos, it propelled him to artistic refinement,
culminating in the professional-grade Captain A.C. Hab music and ultimately his masterpiece game Luciferianism.
By meticulously documenting his madness and controversies, the steam ban, the lawsuits, the conflict in Kensington, he effectively ensured that his name, or at least the discussion of his name and his works, would be permanently embedded in the digital space.
And the ultimate irony connects right back to that Buddhist fortune.
The man who was told he would live an easy life has lived years of extreme documented crisis, yet now finds what he calls heaven and artistic peace in this strange arrangement with an 83-year-old grandma.
He achieved the stability required for his best work, but only after surviving years of self-inflicted and external torture.
And that leads to a provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
If artistic quality is achieved only when pain recedes, as Brendan Rose claims, does the intentional creation of conflict, the flushing of medication, the self-sabotage, the shockingly antagonistic music designed to taunt enemies, does that become a necessary form of artistic scaffolding?
Is the publicizing of one's own chaos, even when you're trying to end the suffering, a required process for certain creative figures to ensure they hit rock bottom, achieve that documentation, and thereby forge the foundations of their lasting mythology?